Fadi Babbie. I'm a private chef, and this particular roast salad that we're working on today is cucumbers, Persian cucumber specifically, or tarhouze. It has garlic, curry, parsley, and white vinegar, about 1 or 2 tablespoons, just to kind of make a paste out of the stuffing aspect of the cucumbers. So the next step is just cleaning the ends off and getting a nice cut on them. They shouldn't be too big, maybe just about your palm, the size of your palm. And then for each cucumber, what you want to do, it's called a butterfly cut. And you don't cut all the way through, but you just kind of make a slit enough to be able to get some stuffing in there. And you're not stuffing it much because, again, all that flavor is going to impact the entire cucumber, what's in the jar, and you have your vinegar and your water in there, and it gets pickled. So you don't need much in there, but just enough to where you can slightly open it, and then you can put your stuffing mix. So once you have all your cucumbers butterflied and you're able to slightly pry them open, you'll next work on the stuffing portion, which is your garlic, curry, and parsley, along with just a little bit of the white vinegar to make it more or less of a paste. Once you get that ready, then you can start stuffing your pickles. So right now I'm just gonna start chopping the parsley itself. And I like to give it a nice fine dice or chop, if you will. You would do this after you've picked your parsley, washed it, and then dried it as well. I usually like to go around. Just to kind of give it a nice fine dice, just like that, fine chopped. Once you have your parsley ready, all nice and chopped, you can work on your garlic just to kind of get it all separated. I like to just kind of push down and get all the bulbs out. Now the easiest way for me that I do it is I'll usually crush the garlic itself. Just like that. And as you can see, the skin just kind of easily gets released. So once you have the skins off of the garlic, you can trim off the ends where the root was. One trick that I like to do is I get it, coarsely chopped. It doesn't even have to be like a nice chop. But then I'll add a little salt to it and then kind of go back and forth with my knife. This kind of creates a rough texture edge to it from the salt, and it helps break down the garlic itself, and it gives you a nice fine mince. So what I do is just kind of I'll hold my knife, and then with my left, or if you're left-handed, whichever is your less dominant hand, I control as I pull against my cutting board and kind of go back and forth. It macerates the garlic. And it's okay to add a little bit of salt because we'll be adding a little salt to the mix as well. And this kind of gives you a finer, more paste-like for the garlic itself. It also depends on how far you want to take it. I like to make it really nice and fine, so I'll go back and give it a good chop. And then continue the macerating process. That looks just about right. And you see how it's just like a paste consistency. and you're ready to combine it with your parsley. So the next thing that you add to it is just some yellow curry. I know they make a lot of different kinds, so you can pick whatever is your favorite. This is more of a mild to a medium spice level, and it works wonderful both if you are actually making curry, the stew with the rice, or even this process itself for the stuffing of the cucumbers, the tarhouze. You're gonna add about a tablespoon or so to it. I like it a little more, so I had like a tablespoon and a half. Now this is only for this much of the pickles that we're doing today. Usually if you're doing about 2 pounds, you're gonna add about 2 to 4 tablespoons of curry based on your taste level and how you want it to be flavored and taste for you. If you want it spicier, you can add a little more. You know, more curry flavor, you can add a little more or a little less. It's all on personal preference at that point. So then the next portion of the stuffing mix is you're gonna add about a tablespoon of white vinegar, and only a little bit, maybe 2 tablespoons at most. And that's just to make the stuffing mixture into a paste, more or less. That way it's easier for you to stuff the tarhouze. So there's a little bit of white vinegar, maybe I'll add a little more. I also like to add a little salt and pepper. That's just me personally. I enjoy seasoning things on every level. If I'm making a soup or a salad or a dressing, on every step of the way, I'll season everything. So if I'm making a chicken stock, I'm seasoning my chicken, and and then if I'm making a chicken noodle soup, I'm continuously seasoning at every step of the way. Not too much, but just enough to bring out the flavor of whatever it is that I'm cooking. So now you're just gonna mix your mixture, the stuffing mixture that you added the white vinegar. I can go a little more, just a tad. And you're gonna make it a little more paste-like, where it's easier to handle, it's easier to stuff, and you're able to actually get it inside the tarhouze themselves. So for this particular process, the stuffing of the tarhouze, I do like to wear gloves. You can wear gloves throughout the whole process, it's up to you. But the reason why I like wearing gloves is I don't want my hands smelling like curry. I also don't want my hands to sting, if I have a cut or something like that on my hands. The white vinegar, the curry, the combination of the garlic and everything. And it's quite easy, actually. All you do is just take kind of, I would say, a nice $50 size of the stuffing mixture, and you just slowly but surely get it in there. Now you want to do this very carefully because you don't want to break it all apart. If it slightly breaks apart, that's okay, because what we're going to do is just stuff it and keep it tight, just like that. And then you can put it in the jar of your choice, however much you want to make. So it kind of looks like this as the end product. And I like to give it a nice wipe down at the end, that way there isn't any extras. So once you have all your cucumbers stuffed and into the jar that you want to use, I add usually about 3 to 1 of white vinegar to water. 3 to 1 portion sizes, so 3 water to 1 vinegar. You can also use apple cider vinegar if that's what you prefer, but I find that white vinegar is a consistent flavor. It's not going to change anything in regards to your pickling process. I usually eyeball this based on the jar and how many pickles I have in there. So that's about, I would say, 3 to 1 once I add the water. And I'm going to add the water. It's okay if it overflows, just work with a nice clean surface And I usually try to, that happens, is get all the air out. That way there's no air in the jar itself. I close it up. And then I usually leave it on my countertop. I'll give it a couple of flips just to get everything kind of mixed in. And you can leave it on your countertop for about a week, week and a half, depending on how pickled you want it to be. If you want it less pickled, less mushy, more crunchy, go a little less. But if you want it more, you can go a little more on that. You can go about a week and a half, I would say 10 to 12 days. And then once it's to the right consistency that you prefer, you can refrigerate it. It'll last in your refrigerator for at least 6 months. So the next portion of this roast salad is the actual roast itself, is the meat. You can use any kind of cut of meat you want. I got chuck roast here. It's a cheaper cut of meat, and which was kind of the purpose of this salad originally when my mom made it. And she would always make it on New Year's to kind of provide a new beginning, a new life, but also to use anything that's available to her at the time, anything that was available. And usually the cheaper cuts of meat were the most available because nobody really wanted them. I have chuck roast here. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of cut it into chunks. And they don't have to be big or small chunks. If I do see a big piece of fat, I usually like to trim it off. Most of that fat will render out anyways in the cooking process itself. But any kind of thick piece of fat, I'll just get rid of it. Once you have all your meat cut up, what you'll do is you'll sear the meat, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So I have nice about 4 to 6 ounce chunks here. I'll trim off some of the fat caps that are in the meat itself. And like I said, most of the fat will render off, and that's just more flavor. So the next process is searing off your chunks of meat. What I like to do is get my pot going that I'm gonna use. I'll get that going with like a medium-high heat, just to get it up to temp. I'll season it with salt and pepper. I'll add a little bit of garlic, and then I'll show you guys the next process as we move along. So once you have your pan hot, and then to test to see if the pan is hot, there's a little trick. What I do is I'll grab a little bit of water, and I'll just sprinkle water. So if it starts dancing like that, then you know your pan is hot enough to create a nice browning sear on your meat or whatever it is that you're cooking. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil. And that's the sound you wanna hear. I'm gonna sear all the sides, all 4 sides of my meat. And you also don't want to overcrowd your pan or pot that you're trying to sear your meat in. That'll take a lot of the heat away from the searing process, and then you're more or less just boiling your meat at that time because there's more liquid. The searing process is basically a caramelization process of the sugars that are either in the onions or meat, for example, just to give it a nice brown color. So earlier you saw me turn up the heat as I added my meat. That's just to kind of bring the temperature back up and going for the searing process. You kind of want to get it to look like that, nice and brown and caramelized. Now my temperature right now is on like a medium-high to a high heat. Once you have all your meat caramelized, browned on all sides, you want to add it back into your pot. And then you'll start adding all your seasonings and spices. This is going to cook for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
on a medium-low heat. You're gonna add a few garlic cloves. I would say for every pound of meat, you wanna add 2 to 3 garlic cloves. About a tablespoon of whole allspice, kuzbura, and about a half a tablespoon of head. So I like to add this in as the meat is still kind of browning. It gets the oils and the fragrances from the spices kind of going. It brings out the natural oils out, if you will. Add a little bit of salt and pepper, as always. You season on every step of the way. This is the last thing I want to add. It's about a half a tablespoon of baharat. And you can use your preference of baharat, whichever ones you like. And then the white vinegar. This actually goes really well. This will also deglaze your pan. We can go about a half a cup, quarter cup to a half a cup for about 2 pounds of meat. You add water just enough to cover your meat, just slightly just above the meat itself. I'm gonna turn the heat right back up, bring it to a boil. Once it's at a boil, I'm gonna turn it to a medium-low, and then leave it covered for about 2.5 hours, maybe even 3, depending on how tender your meat is. So once your meat or the water starts boiling, you wanna turn it down to about a medium-low heat, leave it covered, and then you're gonna let it cook down for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, like I said. And you wanna make this for the salad the day before. That way it's rested, all the juices kind of flow back into the meat, and it's still juicy for your salad. So now it's New Year's Eve. You have your lettuce washed and it's dried. You have your meat that you cooked the day before, and the pickles, the terrouzah that you pickled a week and a half ago. So now that it's all ready, we can start assembling the salad, mixing it up, and I can also show you the presentation as far as how we did it back home. So I basically peeled the romaine lettuce apart, but however, I did keep the hearts of the lettuce themselves whole. These, again, nothing goes to waste mentality. This was kind of made to kind of preserve and save everything that you use, everything that you have. So the hearts of the romaine, we actually chop up and use within the salad, so nothing actually goes to waste. And the bigger leafy portions are used as presentation. So simplest way of like cutting it, or at least how I like to cut it, is I'll cut off the butt end of the romaine heart. One slice down the middle, I'll flip it over, quarter of a turn, another slice. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can just kind of give it a nice chop. You kind of want small chopped lettuce like that. And the reason why I also like using the heart of the lettuce, it gives it another color dimension. They're a little more yellow than the green outer layers of the lettuce itself. So once you have all your lettuce chopped up, you're gonna start chopping up your meat, your roast that you made the day before. It's nice and cold now. The salad is served cold as an appetizer, as a starter, a mezza, if you will. The chunks of meat, you're gonna wanna cut those into small cube size, and you want it to be very meat heavy, where the other ingredients like the lettuce and the pickles are there only to help accentuate the flavor of the meat itself. So I like to get it all sliced up like this, and then I'll start to quarter it into small bite-sized chunks, kind of like so. Now, when you're cooking roast, a lot of times it will stay red. That doesn't mean that it's undercooked or not cooked, but your bigger pieces of meat will have that look. Especially if you sear it, it kind of creates that browning effect on the outside, and you have a layer of a nice brown meat with your red meat. But this is 100% fully cooked, because don't forget, you have it in your stock or in your pot for about 2.5 hours. Once you have all your meat cut up, you're now gonna add it to your bowl of cut up lettuce. So these are the pickles that you've prepared ahead of time. You can either remove the stuffing. I like to keep it in, a little more flavor, a little more texture, and it just kind of balances everything out, from the fatty content of the meat to the acidic content of and the spicy content of the cucumbers. Your next process, or your next step for the salad itself, pick your nicest looking bigger sized leaves of the romaine, and then you're gonna just stack them like so, one on top of one another, one next to each other, just to kind of create a floral leaf pattern. Because after all, we do eat with our eyes first, so we want to make it look as presentable as possible. It is the new year. You have guests over, you have family over, so you want to give them your best. And this salad was again made for a way of enriching your life, your new year, your upcoming year to be more prosperous, to use everything, to not let anything go to waste, not a moment, nor any type of food, because by all means, use what you got and use everything and use all of it. So once you have that completely covered, you can start now mixing your salad, and then this is how you will be presenting it. Now that you have everything set up, you're gonna need about 2 cups of mayonnaise, about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, salt, pepper, and 2 lemons, or the juice of 2 lemons, which will give you about 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. What I like to do is just kind of squeeze all the lemons. And then you can, as far as taste-wise, that's up to you. If you want to use less lemon juice, that's up to you. If you want to use more, again, it's all personal taste and preference. So as you taste as you go, just like I do for my private events, when I have a catering event or a private dinner event, I taste as I go, just to see the level of acidity, sweetness, or saltiness of whatever dish that I'm making. And I try to do that because I want my food, the final presentation, to taste as good as I want it to be, as well as what my clients want it to be. And if you taste as you go, you can always adjust your salt, your lemon, or the mayonnaise. If you want it to be more creamy, you add a little more mayonnaise. So as you taste, as you go and you taste your food along the process, you kind of get the hang of what it should taste like, as well as how you want it to taste like at the end. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil, just about 2 tablespoons, like I said, some salt and pepper. And when I add my salt and pepper, what I like to do is I like to cover the entire surface first, and that's kind of where my starting point is. And like I was saying, if you taste as you go, you can kind of gauge how much salt and pepper you want to add, but your starting point should always be to cover the entire top layer. I'm gonna add the mayonnaise. Like I said, you're gonna add about 2 cups of mayonnaise. I'm only gonna add about 1 1¼ right now, just to see how the result is. And when I mix, I try to go all the way to the bottom, bring it to the top, and just keep going around in a circular pattern.
I'm gonna add a little more lemon juice to it as well. Looks like it needs a little more